Good morning. It's April 29th. This is To My Liberal Friends. Yesterday I talked about Democrats who claim that nobody's above the law and that everyone, including illegal immigrants, deserve to have due process on their case. Of course, this does not apply to judges that have tried to shield immigrants from arrest, even if they've been deported multiple times or active members of a Venezuelan gang. After all, it was Trump deporting these people and not Biden or Obama. They were silent when those Democratic presidents were deporting people. But the rule of law seems to change in Minnesota depending on who you are and the crime you commit. I think you all remember when liberals were out throwing firebombs at Tesla dealerships and keying the cars of Tesla owners, even though most of them were more than likely liberal Democrats who bought an electric car to show support for the environment. A state government employee named Dylan Adams, who is 33, so not some kid, was caught vandalizing 6 Teslas in late March during this period of attacking anything produced by Elon Musk's company. He left $21,000 worth of damage and over $10,000 to a single car. This was a total of 6 felonies. You would assume that the charge would be significant and some time being incarcerated would follow, but you'd be wrong. You see, the Minneapolis County Attorney, Mary Moriarty, is someone that was supported by George Soros and follows the same floor of law enforcement that Alvin Bragg in New York, Chesa Bouton in San Francisco, and George Gascon in Los Angeles. I should point out that the voters in LA got tired of Gascon's form of justice and voted him out of office. So rather than prosecute these felonies committed by Mr. Adams, and they're all caught on videotape so there's no doubt about the crime, Ms. Moriarty allowed Adams to basically walk away, offering him diversion instead of criminal charges. Now, it took this gross misapplication of justice for the local media to finally wake up and do their job. According to Ms. Moriarty, by placing Mr. Adams in a diversion program, it, quote, helps ensure the individual keeps his job, end quote, and it's a taxpayer-supported job. She said it helps him pay restitution. But unfortunately, or should I say fortunately, the press dug a little deeper and found that on the same day Moriarty allowed Mr. Adams to avoid any criminal charges, she charged a 19-year-old woman with no prior criminal record with a first-degree felony for keying a single car belonging to a White Castle co-worker and causing $7,000 in damage. I point out that those numbers because according to the Office of Minneapolis County Attorney, the diversion guidelines limit it to $5,000 in damage. Mr. Adams caused 4 times that amount. You have to wonder if Ms. Moriarty decided to let Adams off lightly because she got a phone call from someone in the Waltz administration. Remember, he's a state employee. Or was it because he did damage to Teslas, and she was okay with that since it was a form of protest against Trump and Musk? It sure begs the question when you look at the 2 cases and one gets off basically with a light charge and the other gets a felony. The Minneapolis Police Department was outraged at the decision. According to the police chief, Brian O'Hara, he said, quote, any frustration related to the charging decision of the Hennepin County Attorney should be solely directed at her office, end quote. In other words, if you don't like this decision, then blame Mary Moriarty. So to all these Democrats and any friends they have in the media, I would simply ask one question. When and who is above the law? Using the phrase has become the Democrats' mantra, but violating the law and defending those who do, refusing to cooperate with legal administrative orders, discriminating against certain political viewpoints in prosecution is certainly not normal. But this was not Ms. Moriarty's first controversy. In her first week in office, she dropped the charges against a 35-year-old man accused of raping a teenage girl. She cited attorney misconduct. And here's what happened in that case. During a recess, while the 17-year-old alleged victim testified with her parent in the courtroom, a victim advocate from one of their offices passed a note to the prosecutor. The note was a reminder to the prosecutor to establish the venue of the offense. This simply means that it happened in Hennepin County. After seeing the note passed and being concerned it could be a violation of sequestration order, Judge Cahill called the prosecutor to the bench and questioned the prosecutor about the content of the note. While the note was not in violation of the sequestration order and was not inappropriate in any way, the prosecutor apparently didn't tell Judge Cahill what its content was. Moriarty had a choice. She could have replaced the attorney but decided to drop the charges because she felt she could not get a conviction. She was more concerned about the criminals' rights than the young girls that had been raped. In yet another case, Moriarty was taken off the case of a murdered 23-year-old Zariah McKeever after the Soros-supported progressive prosecutor offered slaps on the wrist to the 2 teenage boy defendants. She wanted to try them as juveniles. The case was referred to the state's attorney's office, and one of the young men who pulled the trigger was sentenced to more than 10 years in prison. McKeever's ex-boyfriend and the father of her child was sentenced to life in prison for orchestrating the murder. All were tried as adults. But we're getting used to seeing these liberal judges and DAs allow hardened criminals to walk away with light sentences or no charges at all. They have decided that they are the law, and they will decide who is above the law and who is not. Well, I'm hoping for the American public to realize that they're getting tired of this mollycoddling of criminals and start getting rid of those who refuse to uphold the law equally. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.